now available on e-readers everywhere. From the author of the SIMP trilogy, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, Manginas, They Look Like Men But They Act Like Ladies, and The Misadventures of Captain Sailor Holcomb's Stop Simping in the Workplace. Learn what mistakes not to make with women and protect your job with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available on e-readers everywhere. A lot of people will look at Stephen Stevens, the man who murdered Robert Godwin and broadcasted to Facebook Live, as an isolated individual and an isolated incident. However, you have to take a look at Stephen Stevens' behavior from a panoramic perspective. Because when you look at Stephen Stevens' behavior from a panoramic perspective, you can see a disturbing trend among the behaviors of men these days. And the reason why these men are participating in these types of behaviors, such as mass shootings and random murders of individuals, is due to the way these males have been raised. And when I look at Stephen Stevens' behavior, it pretty much fits the pattern I saw emerging with James Harris Jackson, Dylan Roof, and Elliot Rodger. And when I look at the profile for all of these guys, many of them had too close attachments to their mothers, or, like in the case of Stephen Stevens, they were raised by a single mother. And because these men were pretty much raised by a single mother, or had a too close attachment to their mother, they had a very distorted picture of the world, and they had an even more distorted picture of women. And as I looked at Stephen Stevens' profile, I clearly saw a dysfunctional pattern of behavior setting up and emerging. And this is a pattern of behavior I read about for over a decade on numerous websites such as Heartless Bitches International and Dr. Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy. Now check that website out, because that one thoroughly goes in depth, and then go read Dr. Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy, because that book pretty much lays out the pattern on these nice guys and their behavior. Now, when it comes down to this Stephen Stevens, he pretty much, again, fits the profile of this quote-unquote nice guy to a T. And he's been pretty much raised to be this nice guy, this white knight, this hero by his single mother. And because these women raise these boys to be quote-unquote better than their fathers, what happens in many cases is a lot of these guys get raised to be coddled, they get raised to be spoiled, and they become extremely emotionally needy. And we can see that in Stephen Stevens' pictures that are presented on social media. If you look at the body language that Stephen Stevens participates in, they clearly show us how emotionally needy this guy is, how he's always holding on to this Joy Lane, how he's literally holding on to her for dear life and clinging to her. I looked at the body language in that picture, and it clearly showed me that. And it also saw other patterns of his dysfunctional behavior in the things he talked about himself. He always talked about himself as the good guy, the great guy, the perfect guy. He saw himself as a perfect man. And this is something that happens in many single mother households, again, because when it comes down to the single mother, what she tries to do is she wants to raise the boy to be better than his father. And when you do that, you are pretty much setting up that boy to become dysfunctional, because he's going to try to be this quote-unquote good boy, trying to do the quote-unquote right thing. And what happens with these type of males is that they simmer and they boil in rage. And the reason why they simmer and boil in rage is because they have not been taught how to navigate their emotions. They've been taught to suppress their emotions so they can put on a face for the world, so that they can look like they're good all the time. Meanwhile, they're not being a balanced person. They're becoming an unbalanced person, because all they're learning is they have to be good all the time, and that they have to be good in order to please a female. And that's what we saw emerging in this Stephen Stevens behavior. He pretty much learned this from his mother, and then he took the codependent relationship he had with his mother and then took it over to Joy Lane. And when he was with Joy Lane, I guarantee you he was pretty much in that codependent relationship with her, taking his emotional hose off his mother and then bringing it over to her. Because I look at this guy's behavior, and it, again, fits the pattern and the profile to a T for these nice guys. Because when it comes down to your nice guy, again, he wants to be the knight in shining armor. He wants to be the hero. He wants to be the captain, save him. And I look at who he got involved with, Joy Lane, and it's a single mother. Any guy with self esteem, self confidence, and a balanced perspective of self is not going to get involved with a single mother. And the reason why they're not going to get involved with a single mother is because they have a sense of self worth and a sense of self esteem. And they're going to say that they want to be with someone who pretty much can have something to offer them in terms of values, in terms of character, in terms of things in common. But because this Stephen Stevens had a low sense of self esteem and was overcompensating by trying to make himself out to be this good guy, he then looked for someone who he could be the hero to, looking to foster another codependent relationship with this Joy Lane. And when he got involved with this Joy Lane and started helping her out with her kids and things like that, he was looking to build a fantasy around this woman. This is another thing that many of these nice guys and these simps try to do all the time. Because when it comes down to women, the simp pretty much sees the woman just like his mother, and he sees his mother through rose colored glasses. And because he sees his mother through rose colored glasses, he sees other women through rose colored glasses. And he couldn't look at this Joy Lane and see her for who she truly was, a single mother, someone who was completely dysfunctional, and pretty much not worth the time to be with. But he thought he was going to come in with his master's degree, his job at social services, and he was going to be the knight in shining armor who saved this woman. He was building a world around this female, and that world pretty much was causing him to become more and more sick and more dysfunctional. This is why he was going out and participating in vices such as gambling, because this is what nice guys do. They try to create this smooth world, and then they try to escape by going to these places like gambling places, strip bars, prostitution, because they want to suppress their natural feelings and their natural desires. So they go to these places to go have an outlet for them in secret. They always do things in secret, and the behavior of this Steven Stevens pretty much fits the profile for that, because this guy pretty much, he wanted to have this world with this woman. He wanted to have this fantasy. And then when Joy Lane decided she did not want to marry this man and live the happily ever after, that's when this Steven Stevens pretty much went berserk. And he pretty much knew what he was doing. And this is something people need to understand. There is no mental illness when it comes down to these nice guys. What it is that it's a temper tantrum. And these guys are mad because they can't get their way. So they go out and they want to destroy everybody's world, because the world that they built is crumbling. And this is what Steven Stevens was going to do. He's going to go out and try to destroy the world and make everyone pay for it. And we clearly see how deeply dysfunctional this man is, because instead of him confronting his own unresolved issues with a psychotherapist, he decides he's going to go out and get a gun to go kill this man, Robert Godwin, on the street. And this is where we see, how deeply damaged and how deeply warped this man's mind is. Because the person he chose to kill was someone who could not defend himself. This 74, 78-year-old man, Robert Godwin, was just a man minding his own business. But I believe the reason why Steven Stevens went out to go kill Robert Godwin was the same reason that James Harris Jackson went to kill Timothy Kaufman. One, because that man couldn't fight back. And two, because both of those men have daddy issues and were looking to lash out at a man similar to the father they didn't have. And that's why they went out to go out and kill those men. And I look at that and it really makes me think about it, because I sit there and say, because I look at James Harris Jackson's behavior and I look at Steven Stevens' behavior, and again, it clearly shows me how much anger many of these psycho simps and many of these nice guys have for their fathers. And they literally are looking for a way to take their anger out on their fathers. And this is a new trend as it relates to the behavior of these mass killers. I saw the same pattern with Elliot Rodger, emerging when he murdered those people in the dorm, in the apartment he was living with, because he stabbed his roommates, but then he went out and shot at women. And that clearly showed me, again, the anger that a lot of these guys have for their fathers and the daddy issues many of these psycho simps have for their fathers. They'll participate in acts of violence against men and before they go out and commit acts of violence against women. And when I look at the recent behaviors of your James Harris Jackson and your Stephen Stevens, again, it shows me a emerging trend with these men. And people really need to take a look at the big picture regarding this trend among men, because I'm looking at the behaviors of these men and why they're participating in these acts of violence. And again, it has to do with the way these males are raised. When we raise males in environments with single mothers or environments where they are too close to women, they are not getting any balance in their lives, and they're not learning how to have healthy relationships with men, and they're not learning how to function and navigate in the world. When we look at Stephen Stevens, we see an individual who doesn't know how to function in the world. Even though he had a master's degree, a good job, he just did not have the life skills or the social skills that any man needs to learn how to navigate life in the world. You would think that a man who had all this education and this good job would have had the character and resolve to say, look, if this woman does not want to get involved with me, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just charge her to the game and keep it moving. But because Stephen Stevens came from a single mother household and pretty much learned a dysfunctional way of thinking, he pretty much believed he had to build a world around this woman, and that his world pretty much crumbled when this woman rejected him. And this is something that many males who come from single mother households believe. They believe that the world revolves around women and that they have to live to make women happy. And that's a dysfunctional way to learn how to live. And I look at this guy's behavior, and again, it fits the pattern and the profile I have been seeing emerging over the last couple of years regarding the males. Because when I look at these males and the way they are raised, it's clearly a pattern emerging. We are getting this more and more of these violent incidents because we're having more and more males who pretty much do not know how to navigate the world, who do not know how to navigate their emotions, and they learn to think, act, and socialize just like women. When we look at Stephen Stevens' pictures on Facebook, he has manicured nails, he has arched eyebrows. He's pretty much just as much a woman as Joy Lane. And the reason why he is acting out is because he is just like a woman. Just like James Harris Jackson, looking for attention, looking to get people to notice him, so that if they see him act out like this, he's going to make a statement. That's a feminine trait. Females look for attention. Most guys, whenever they get dumped or rejected, or a woman that's not interested in them, they learn how to move on. They understand that, look, there are 4 women for every 1 man, and there are numerous opportunities to meet other women. So when a woman dumps them, they really don't feel it. But today's males, because they have been raised by females and raised too close to females, believe that an opportunity with a female is a rare thing. And this is something I learned, from growing up in the 80s, watching all those 1980s movies about over the last couple of years, looking at the paradigm for those stories. And a lot of guys took that model from those films, those scripts from those films, and believed them to be reality. They believed that these teen movies, that, their opportunities at relationships with women are rare. They believe opportunities at sex with women are rare. And that's not the case at all. That's scripted entertainment. That's not real life. And that there are opportunities all around people, but your simp doesn't understand this because, again, he pretty much gets his ideas from his single mother and from the entertainment he sees, not understanding that entertainment is scripted, it's not real, and it's meant to entertain him. He takes it for reality, not understanding it's fantasy. And that's why these guys are so obsessed with building fantasy worlds around women and trying to create fantasies where they live happily ever after, because that's what Stephen Stevens was trying to do with this single mother, Joy Lane. He was going to try to build this fantasy world around this woman, and he was trying to get to happily ever after. And then when happily ever after wasn't going to come, he was going to make everybody miserable. And what really makes everybody miserable is the fact that this guy pretty much has no courage to go out here and go deal with his problems. He's going to go out here and murder an innocent man because he's feeling bad. That's what really is sick about this guy. He's going to murder an innocent man, an elderly man, because he is too scared to go out and go deal with his emotions, too scared to confront his feelings, too scared to confront how he feels about things, and too scared to understand that, you know, it's just a woman. Women are a dime a dozen. Women are like buses. One leaves you, you will find another one. And this is something this guy was never raised to learn. This is something he was never taught to learn. This is something many males have not been taught to learn because many men have never been taught coping skills, and many boys today are not being taught coping skills. I have family members who work in education who are seeing this pattern of behavior emerge as young as 3 years old. These boys are not being taught the life skills and social skills that they are going to need to survive in the world. And the reason why they're not going to be taught these skills is because their mothers are not in their lives to be teachers of culture. In many cases, the mothers will toss them off to daycare, or they pretty much abandon these guys, and that's what's leading to them being so emotionally needy. Because when we look at the guy like Steven Stevens, I can see the pattern and profile, emerging because I've read the things on numerous websites and numerous books, and I've seen family members who work in education who've told me the stories about them, and they've told me things that have show me this pattern and profile to a T. And when I look at this guy, I pretty much see that pattern emerging, and I see this pattern growing because I look at these recent incidents, and I said it was going to get worse because many of these males are not being raised with the coping skills and the life skills a boy can only get from two parents. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.